Welcome to Voices Against Violence, a Harmony House podcast to educate, empower, and serve as a voice for survivors. We aim to shed light on crucial issues surrounding domestic violence, offer support, and inspire action for change. Join us as we work together to create a community where all individuals can live a life free of abuse. This episode with Representative Cecelie Williams was recorded virtually and so may include some audio and technical issues, but her story and her work of advocacy for survivors comes through. In addition, this episode does include graphic descriptions of domestic violence. Please be advised.
Welcome back to Voices Against Violence. My name is Kirsten Walker. I serve as the Assistant Executive Director at Harmony House.
I'm Charity Jordan-Rex, Prevention Program Manager for Harmony House.
And we have a special guest today.
Yes, very special guest.
We would like to welcome Missouri House of Representatives, Representative Cecelie Williams from House District 111. Welcome, Cecelie Williams.
We are so excited to have you with us.
How
do you want us to address you? Do you want us to call you Cecelie, Representative Williams?
Yes. No. Cecelie, please.
Cecelie sounds great. Or we could always refer to you as the representative with the cutest office we've ever seen.
Oh my goodness.
Bright pink walls and a candy wall, which immediately made me want to come back to Harmony House and implement a candy wall.
I mean, for listeners, we,
Yes.
back in February, we were able to visit with Cecelie for Capital Advocacy Days. And so she invited us into her office. And her office is just like Insta-worthy, like the whole office.
It's good. It looks like Pinterest.
Oh,
Yeah, hashtag office goals.
oh, that's so sweet. I love all things pink and candy and all those things.
Well, thank you so much for being on Voices Against Violence today. Voices Against Violence is the Harmony House podcast that we use to educate and inform everyone about domestic violence related issues. So the folks that listen to our podcast generally are in the Springfield, Greene County area of Missouri and as far reaching as every continent except for Antarctica. So, and maybe that's changed. We need to look at our analytics. Maybe we've gotten Antarctica by now, but it's listeners who are survivors, listeners who care deeply about survivors, listeners who are maybe service providers. And so eager to share more about the work that you've done to support survivors in your role at the House of Representatives. So can we start with just learning more about what does a representative do? Like, what does your day-to-day look like? What does governing look like in the day-to-day?
So during our session, which is January to May, we spend most our days either creating legislation or trying to fight for our legislation, talking to constituents or other lobbyists around the Capitol who have interest in getting their policies promoted or passed. Me specifically, I came in knowing that I was going to pass these three things. It was like my triangle of care, personal care for myself.
Yeah.
But it affected so many other people. And that's really what my goal was the first year and the second year. And when I was running, people were telling me this is going to take you forever to do. I was very discouraged, but I thought there's no way. This isn't going to take me forever. And I did it my first term.
Wow.
Wow.
Which that speaks to
really, that's the day of the legislator.
Thank you for the overview. And I think that your ability to accomplish things within your first term really speaks to your ability to advocate for survivors, to work on bipartisan issues and say that this matters to everyone. Domestic violence, supporting survivors of domestic violence should be a priority for all. And because you had to work with everyone in order to get that accomplished, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's my first year, I was so discouraged because so people would come to me and say, I can't support this legislation. And I said, what do you mean you can't support allowing pregnant women to get divorced in the state of Missouri? I don't understand that. And they're like, well, I don't support divorce. And I said, well, then what do you support? Because while I believe in marriage, and I have a very great marriage with my second husband, my first one I didn't. And what makes us think that we need to stay in a situation that we're no longer safe in?
Yeah. Thank you so much. So let's dive in deeper to that specific bill, because that was a huge win. So if you are watching and you were unaware, being pregnant used to be a prohibitive factor when it comes to getting divorced in Missouri. Can you speak to the impact that has on survivors of domestic violence and why it was important to you to be able to move forward with making sure that wasn't a barrier for folks from leaving an abusive marriage?
Sure. Oftentimes abuse is elevated during pregnancy. And it's that the abuser might feel like their wife is going to love the baby more than they love them, or they're going to have more attention on the baby than their spouse. But there's a lot of other things, because there's a lot of emotions that go into being pregnant. Women, we fluctuate our emotions. A lot of things we can't control. And a lot of our abusers, that's how they control us, is through our emotions. They manipulate us. For me, being vulnerable and pregnant, and then saying you have to stay in this situation, and it's not even that the law says I don't want to say law, but the barrier states that you have to stay married. But when you file for divorce, you have that paperwork that says that you're going on your own, and you can secure another home, especially if you have a mortgage. You can secure help if you don't have your financial autonomy. You have to share with your spouse. This allows you a lot of different freedoms. In Jefferson County, the county I live in, specifically, they did not allow me to file for divorce.
Yeah.
So I never got those papers that stated I could go and get an apartment, or, maybe file for daycare help, or, apartment help or food help or anything like that. Luckily, I was financially secure enough, so that was a different situation. I didn't have that concern. But I couldn't get those divorce papers. And, the number one cause of death in pregnant women is intimate partner violence. It's homicide. And knowing that the state of Missouri is keeping women in that situation purposely just because they are pregnant just is insane to me. It's so hard to wrap your head around, especially in 2026. It's not the 1970s anymore.
I will say, when we visited with you, I do recall one of our Harmony House staff, they were with us, and they shared a story of a client whose abuser had sabotaged the condom so that they would get pregnant. They did, knowing that if they got pregnant, they would have to stay there. And that person ended up having to stay in that relationship for another 2 years. So I mean, it just can't be emphasized enough that having the freedom to get out of an abusive situation is a game changer. It's a lifesaver. And for those listening who may not be aware, the two most dangerous times for a woman in an abusive situation is, number one, when she's leaving, and number two, when she gets pregnant.
Right.
So you kind of touched on your story, Cecelie, but I wonder if you feel comfortable to share part of your story, because you're a survivor.
Sure. Absolutely, yes. I was in an abusive marriage with my first husband. I endured a really terrible night of beating where he had hit me in the face with a baseball bat. And it's crazy that I even have to explain this, but I get questioned about it as how I survived being hit in the face with a bat. And all I can say is that The bat wasn't a full-size bat. It was like a novelty wooden bat that you would get the Cardinals game. That was almost like a police baton. But I don't know how to explain that in a fast talking situation. So I say a bat, but people then question why I'm still alive. I mean, this is really, these are questions that I get, like, well, people would question, well, why would you marry someone who's abusive, or why? And that we all know we all know, but that's not how the abuse starts. So they slowly take pieces of you away to where you don't even recognize yourself anymore. You would, things that were never acceptable become acceptable because, well, this is just temporary. And then you experience a little bit of abuse, and then they love bomb you, and then everything's okay. So then you live for those wonderful moments, but then you deal with the abuse. But eventually abuse becomes so often that there's no more love bomb moments. But that particular night for abuse, I had forgotten his beer. And I had cooked dinner for the children and for him as well, but he was so upset about it. We had gotten into an argument. I went back to the bedroom after he had went back there. And as I was walking in, our son was in there watching TV, and he comes out of the bathroom and he just starts yelling at me and picks up the bat and hits me in the left side of my face. And stands over me, spits in my face, and then just leaves the house. And I'm there at the house with my 3 children, pregnant with my last child, all by myself. And it was just I had nothing I could do nothing. I had this racking feeling in my brain. I was bleeding. He ended up breaking my orbital bone in my jaw. And he had taken my cell phone. We live in a very rural area, so I couldn't send my 7-year-old son to go get help. Just was too dangerous for that. But my mother-in-law ended up finding me the next morning. On the house floor, I explained about the bloody footprints because my children had been being around me the whole evening and bringing their pillows and blankets to sleep next to me. And one of the moments I like that replay in my head all the time are those bloody little bitty footprints everywhere that look like the footprints you see on the day your child's born. And it was just terrible. And the school called because my kids didn't show up to school that morning. And my mother-in-law came to check on us. And that's where she found us. And I knew after that it was time to leave. But really it was my 7-year-old telling me, Mommy, I think we need to leave Daddy. And all of a sudden something snapped in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, we do. So,
wow.
I went to file for divorce, and I couldn't. So I went back to the same situation I was stuck in.
Something we talk about often on the podcast is the barriers that exist within our systems. It's so hard to leave abusive relationships personally, right? Because you're dealing with, all kinds of considerations and factors. And then when somebody is ready and it goes to make that choice and then facing a barrier through a system that they didn't choose, or they have what feels like no way around. And then to know now that barrier is one less barrier for folks because of the advocacy work that you did. That's really something.
I mean, what I think as I'm listening.
It's unbelievable. It just is unbelievable.
As I'm listening to your story, Cecelie, I'm so moved that you took that horrific experience and that pain, and you have turned that into something amazing for survivors all across the state of Missouri. And, I was moved hearing you speak when we were in your office in February, but I'm just as moved now. And, there are no words to express the lives that are going to be saved because of what you did. So I'm wondering if you can talk about what it's like being a survivor with that experience, but then also being a lawmaker. I imagine that has to be difficult, like the conversation that you referenced earlier where people didn't want to support it because they don't believe in divorce. But like, what does that look like, that intersection of you being a survivor of domestic violence, but also being a lawmaker and trying to advocate for survivors?
Yeah, it's definitely a different situation, because when someone says things or demeans, not necessarily demeans you, but will say, well, why did you stay? Because you hear that a lot. Or you'll hear people say, like, well, that's not an issue. You don't need to worry about someone tracking your vehicle unlawfully. Like, they don't do that. They absolutely do. And all these different things that are been created, these laws, I think with these unintended consequences and how they've held women hostage, and men too, anybody who's abused in a situation that they can't escape.
Right.
And I think that, having that story and coming out with it on the House floor, you're very vulnerable. People, it seems, they wonder who's more vulnerable than I am. Like, I'm feeling down on myself. Maybe I'm going to go after and attack this person. And it seems like that I could be that person, but I like them to quickly realize that I'm not that person. And I'm kind of known. I feel like I'm known as the abused woman, lawmaker, because I came out with my story. There's so much more to me than just that. And I know people are aware of that. But I mean, ultimately, that was why I ran for office, was to change these terrible things that have held women in situations they no longer want to be in. And ultimately, I had to come out with my story so people truly understood why this bill, why this law, not a barrier, not allowing women to get divorced when they're pregnant, how dangerous it was and how it was doing such a disservice to the people of Missouri. And I had to get people to understand why this was important, and coming out with my story is the only way I could do that. And so I think that people tend to come to me for these things. I know that people have come to me and said, oh my God, I had a sister who couldn't get divorced. I have a daughter that's being abused. Do you have any ways to help her get out of her abusive marriage? Or, and I love being that person people can come to, but it also is a reminder that my past truly existed, and that while the scars are no longer on the outside, they're still on the inside. And it's really I feel like I have this raw nerve, and I'm a little bit more sensitive to things when people say something I probably would have brushed off prior to this. I now don't. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, that's not how that is.
What courage that it took. Politics, it seems kind of like the Wild West sometimes. And, when you're a lawmaker, especially as a woman, it feels sometimes like people are looking for any excuse to pick you apart and criticize you. And so the courage it must have taken to share that your story in that space is just unimaginable. But also what I love is that you kind of are a model for other survivors to show that you can go through this experience, something horrific, but there is a life after that. You can go on to be successful and do things maybe you never dreamed you could do. And I wonder if you have any words of wisdom for those survivors across the state who maybe are getting ready to get out or who have gotten out and are wondering, what is life like after domestic violence? What would you say to those folks?
I would say life is beautiful after domestic violence. It takes a lot of courage to leave, and it is so hard, and it is nothing that I've ever done lightly for anyone. My advice is always to anyone who has family that are stuck in a situation and they can't leave is to be patient, to be there when they ask you to be, to not be pushy, and to try to understand where they're coming from. On the other hand, there is purpose in the pain. And if I knew I had to go through the abuse that I went through to get the life I have right now, I have been married for 19 years to my husband. I got married 9 months after my first husband passed away because I truly didn't even get a divorce from him. He ended up committing suicide, still controlling in the manner in which he left our marriage. And I would say there is a life where things can get better. And when you're ready for help, I'll be here.
Wow. So much hope in that sentiment that there is life after domestic violence. You had a huge feat by getting that bill around the dissolution of marriage passed. Are there bills down the road that are going to help survivors that you're looking at or thinking about or working on?
So 2 other really great bills passed also. The first year, last year, was the monitoring of violent offenders through restraining orders and the GPS tracker that a judge could order them to wear that alerts the victim that their offender is within the area, could be possibly, violating their perimeters. So that was passed. And it has no sunset, so it's signed into law forever.
Wow.
Until someone wants to reverse it, and I will be there to fight that it never gets reversed. Then the unlawful tracking of a motor vehicle. So currently, you can track any motor vehicle you want for any reason. And if you and your husband own the same vehicle, and he puts a tracker on there to control you and you don't know about it, that's now illegal.
Wow.
Wow. These are just huge.
So those were my 3 things.
Yeah. This last session, there were so many bills to watch when it came to supporting survivors of domestic violence. And I know that you had a huge part in that. So thank you for your continued advocacy for survivors. Thank you for meeting with us today to talk through your experience and how it's influenced your work as a legislator. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And if you ever want to share something else, please come back anytime. We'd love to have you.
Oh, I love that. And if you all have any concerns or you see something that is failing Missouri women or men or anybody in the line of domestic violence or anything that I can do as a legislator, please come to me.
Thank you so much.
I'm willing to do anything, anytime, anywhere, for anyone.
Thank you so much. We so appreciate you.
All individuals have a right to a life free of abuse. If you or someone you know needs help, please call our 24-hour hotline, 417-864-SAFE, 417-864-7233, or chat 24/7 with an advocate on our website at myharmonyhouse.org. Visit our website or follow us on our socials to stay up on the latest news and events. This is Voices Against Violence. Thanks for listening.